Smark Out Club, 444 Life.
All right, welcome to another episode of the Smark Out Club, and we are, of course, presented, as always, by the Give Us a Shot Network. Today, I have a very special guest, Christopher Morton. He hosts the Morton's Law podcast. He is a stand-up comedian. He's a basketball coach. He's worked in sports for 17 years. Chris, what's up, man?
Hey, thank you very much for having me on the show. Appreciate it. Good to be here.
Yeah. So today we're going to talk, you had an interesting topic on your last podcast about selling, announcer selling, but I want to take it a step further and talk about the art of selling in general in wrestling. We're also going to talk about the Hurt Business breaking up and how it's an awful thing that Vince McMahon did. We are also going to talk a little bit about the WWE Hall of Fame that just recently happened. And of course, the big thing in wrestling, Wrestlemania 37, we'll get to that. So Chris, tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us about your history in sports and in wrestling and everything that you do, and tell us about your podcast and where we can find it.
Okay, great. Yeah, I've been pretty much working in sports television. I should have updated my Twitter, by the way, since like 2003, so it's 18 years. But behind the scenes, working at SNY for the Mets Network. I worked at CBS Sports. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've done a variety of things, working at ESPN. And now I coach basketball, youth basketball in Manhattan with kids ages 8 to 13. And I'm an overall big sports fan. My podcast consists of, I'm a relatively new stand-up comedian, so I do more open mics and stuff like that. And I've been doing that for about a couple years now. So I like to implement it into my podcast, Morton's Law, which is pretty much off of the term Murphy's Law, because pretty much everything in my life that can go wrong does. So that's the basis for my comedy, which is mostly dark and twisted humor. And I'm one of these people that I don't mind towing the line of offending people. It is what it is. And I'm kind of like the Dave Chappelle, Louis C.K. on that line. So if you're offended by me, I don't mind.
Man, we're going to get along just great. That's all I do in our Facebook group, Marking Out as a Habit, and everybody hates me there. So we're going to get along great.
Sounds
That's awesome, man. Where can we find your comedy and your podcast?
Well, the podcast Morton's Law is pretty much on every streaming. I mean, it's all over Apple. I use Anchor as a host right now, although in the future we'll see what happens. I also have Morton's Law podcast on YouTube, so I'm just trying to continue to go with this, and we'll see what happens.
Awesome. So Morton's Law podcast, I will put the link in the description. You guys go check them out. Support the people that support us. And I am very grateful to have Chris here with us. So let's get into it, man. On your last podcast, you talked about selling, like the announcers not selling the match and it taking away from the product. So talk a little bit about that and your overall thoughts about the announcers, how like the quality is specifically WWE announcers, because it seems like we've had 27 of them since JR and King left.
Right. We talk about Michael Cole specifically, how hard he sells those finishes. And when he does the for the win, 1, 2, and then the guy kicks out. And it's just, we know the match isn't going to end right there. And the reason why is because they didn't use their finisher. And matches nowadays, it seems like the majority, I mean, forget about majority, almost 95% of matches end with a finisher. So I think if they were to switch it up more often and surprise us with, and not just always a small package or a roll up or something like that, but if guys maybe won with the occasional setup move, a move that used to be their finisher. Because if you notice in wrestling nowadays, a guy has a finisher for X amount of time, and then they eventually come up with a new finisher. So now the old finisher is a setup move, and they never win with it anymore. And ultimately, I just feel like with the announcers, if I'm not surprised ever, well, then I'm just sitting back going, okay, well, you can 1, 2, and then kick out all the time with your sell, but I know the match isn't going to end now. So it's predictable from that standpoint. You agree with that?
I agree 100%. And Michael Cole is the worst. I have no idea why he continues to work. I've been trying to get him off of TV for almost 20 years now. It's not just him. It's like it's so scripted. These guys have and I get most of it's probably not their fault. I know Vince controls a lot. I know Kevin Dunn and all these guys control a lot. John Laurinaitis when he was there. you have to let these guys be themselves. So when it sounds all cookie cutter, like to me, outside of Michael Cole, all the other announcers are the same, man. It's like, I hearken back to the times. I wish Taz was there. I wish JBL was back. Like, they knew how to call a match and make it believable. And it's not even just that. Like, they add a perspective that draws you in because, for all that, I might as well just turn the announcers off and just watch the wrestling and come up with my own conclusion. I feel like it would be more enhanced, and it goes to everybody. For me, it's like, the wrestlers too. You mentioned that wrestlers are not, using finishing moves, and they're setting up different moves and they're changing. One person that comes to mind is Seth Rollins, who used to do like basically the Kenny Omega knee move. And then all of a sudden, he goes into the curb stomp, and then all of a sudden he goes into the pedigree, and now it's back to the curb stomp. It's like, all right, man. So like, what's your finisher now? You know what I mean? Like, how am I supposed to believe that one move is more devastating than the other? Why would you stop using this move that everybody's trying to tell me is like so devastating, but it's not? Like, it doesn't, The Rock has one finisher. It's the people's elbow. It's the rock bottom. And if he doesn't do it like that, then it is what it is. I feel like back in the day, every wrestler had a go-to submission and a go-to finisher, and then that was it. And you knew that if he hit it, the match was probably over. And it made the match even better because The Rock and Austin had to stun and rock bottom each other 30 times sometimes for the match to be over. And it just added an element. And nowadays that seems like it's missing. And I don't know whose fault that is. Who do you place that blame on?
Well, I'll say this. I think ultimately if the bigger matches and you have the false finishes, I understand that. But nowadays, especially on AEW and overall in the independent scene, and not for nothing, New Japan has been guilty of this lately too. Every match has 1,000 false finishes. So you're just like, okay, well, I know how it's going to end now because, and now, like you mentioned, a lot of guys are kicking out of finishers too. And it's just overdone. It becomes just, I don't need to see this anymore. And you mentioned Kenny Omega with the V trigger, and I watched the AEW show, and we know his finisher is the one-winged angel, but if you look at that V trigger and how hard he hits it, why can't he win a match with that? Because if you think about it, and Tony Khan came out and said he wanted to do sports-based wrestling, and we talk about MMA and fighting in general. If you hit somebody with that knee in MMA, they're knocked out. That is it. So when he's hitting the V trigger 8 times in a match, it looks fake. It doesn't hurt then. Yeah.
100%. And it's weird, especially now. Like, I know that they're starting to get crowds back a little bit, but I remember when they didn't have any, any people in the crowd. And I was watching some of these matches, and I don't think they were wrestling any differently. But for the first time, like my belief was like not suspended. I was like, man, I'm really watching these people fake fight, is because there's no, selling. You have to make the crowd believe it. And if there's no crowd there to believe it, I'm not going to believe it on my couch. And you're right. Like the V trigger, if you're going to use it, then use it. And it's either going to finish the match or the guy kicks out of it, but then you should just stop going to it. There shouldn't be a reason why you're doing it 4 or 5 times in a match. Unless I get if it's like one of their bigger, like a Revolution type deal, and you're fighting, Johnny Moxley or Christian Cage now that he's there. And I'm a huge Christian fan, but it's like, a match like his that had a bunch of false finishes, that was good because it was his first match in AEW. I just don't want all his matches to be like the one he had with Kazarian because, it would take away some of his luster. And yeah, the wrestlers is just basics. I remember Triple H a little while ago, he was talking about ring psychology. A lot of these guys just don't have it. Like, they don't know how to tell a story. Triple H had a very limited moveset, but all of his matches were interesting because he knew how to work in the ring. Daniel Bryan does that. Daniel Bryan knows how to do what he's doing. CM Punk, the reason, I don't think CM Punk is some outstanding wrestler, but he knows how to tell a story within the match, and it makes people invested. And it's not enough. Like, you have guys like Ricochet who have all the talent in the world. And actually, I make this argument a lot. One of my favorite acts coming out of WWE in the recent years, and one that they actually fumbled away, was Enzo and Cass. Enzo is not a good wrestler. Everybody knows this. But his ring psychology and his charisma and his mic work, he made 205 Live main event Raw multiple times. You know what I mean? Like he was the reason why people were watching 205 Live, because in a match, even though he was getting his ass kicked, he could sell his ass off and he made it believable. And he was very limited, but you have to maximize and optimize that potential. And that's why people loved him. And, you know, people were clamoring, oh, this guy, he doesn't represent this, that, and the other. Give it to Cedric Alexander, who can do every move in the book, but he has the personality of a cardboard box. And once he became champion, it was over for 205 Live. And so you hit the nail on the head when it came to selling in wrestling.
Yeah, and I mean, you remember when we were talking about, well, I remember how I discovered your podcast. We were talking about Keith Lee in terms of his charisma or lack thereof and why Vince sent him back down. And then the funny thing is we're going to go forward now talking about WrestleMania coming up. And Keith Lee is what? Is he in catering for this show? I'm not sure.
100%. He hasn't been on TV in almost 2 months now, I think. And I hate, listen, I'm one of those people, I love to tell you, I told you so. Keith Lee, I mean, I don't even know what he is. Like, nobody could tell me. I don't care that he can do a moonsault off the second turnbuckle. That doesn't mean anything to me. Why am I invested in you? Why, you know, these guys fall in love with these indie people and they're like, oh, he only gets the pop because he was in NXT and he's an independent guy, but that's not enough in WWE. It speaks to my Cedric Alexander and Enzo Amore take. Keith Lee is a nobody. He's just, you know, what about him says, oh, he's a draw? They can't make up his mind how he wants to come to the ring. They can't make up his mind how they want him to dress. What character is he? He just talks like Shakespeare and he's a big black guy and we're supposed to care? Like, I don't know. He should have came in as a heel. That's where, like, you have a guy like that where you don't really know what to do with him. Make him a heel. He has the size. Let him beat up on a bunch of little guys and figure it out later. Yeah,
listen, I've been following Keith Lee for a long time. And the thing about Keith Lee and a lot of these guys that you mentioned, independent style, is it only draws a certain amount of people. And that's the problem. Like you said, the mainstream and overall ratings have been on the decline. Business overall has been on the decline for years. And now you only have, 1.7 million on average watching Raw, a little over 2 million on SmackDown. And the numbers dwindle all the time. And what percentage of people really care about guys like Keith Lee? You're right about that.
Yeah, you have to establish who you are. It's not enough to just be a guy from the indies to come into WWE. That's great. And that's why AEW is around and why AEW is successful. They have the wrestling crowd. People tune into AEW to watch the wrestlers. Families turn into wrestling fans don't turn into WWE programming. That's why AEW beats NXT all the time. And with WWE should never be losing to AEW. WWE has a 50-year head start on the 2-year AEW brand, but AEW simply exists because of the problem we just talked about when it comes to establishing stars, giving us real wrestling. I think Keith Lee would be perfect for AEW because I think he can be himself. And that's a Vince McMahon problem, and that kind of segues us into our next topic, and the Hurt Business breaking up. What the hell, man? What the hell was Vince McMahon thinking breaking up the Hurt Business? Because the story came out that he just randomly decided on a Tuesday afternoon that the Hurt Business shouldn't be around anymore. MVP and Bobby Lashley went into his office and met with him. And I guess it didn't matter because that very next Monday, the Hurt Business had broke up. So what are your thoughts on that?
It was the most random, unexpected, and not in a good way, unpredictable breakup you'll ever see. And I'll be honest, I don't watch Raw every week because I often joke about people watching Raw voluntarily versus at gunpoint.
Yeah.
And when I saw this happen, I heard about it first, and then I went back and watched it. I was like, what were they thinking? Because it was just getting over. And I had proposed an idea initially about the potential of a double turn at WrestleMania because I thought the Hurt Business was gaining steam and potentially, I don't want to say turning full face, but at least potentially tweener, and then having McIntyre turn heel where you could have Lashley keep the title. And then them doing this just ruined that completely if that was even a thought of theirs.
Yeah, I am of the belief that there is no way in blue hell that Bobby Lashley is going to keep this title. And that's even a bigger and stronger argument on why you don't break up the Hurt Business, because Lashley only has the title and he's been booked the way he has been, the way he should be, to be honest, is only for Drew McIntyre to beat him at Mania with people in the stands so McIntyre can have his WrestleMania moment back, which I think is an insult to Bobby Lashley. Obviously, he's going to take the opportunity to become a WWE champion. I'm not faulting him for that, but the plan for him afterwards, I don't see him staying in the main event scene. He should be, though. I think he should, but I think that should only be accomplished with the Hurt Business. I had a scorching hot take that got me in a lot of trouble. There's no argument anybody can give me that doesn't tell me that Vince McMahon is maybe not a racist, but a white elitist. I don't think Vince McMahon wanted a powerful black group at the top of his company. I think he broke them up because, as you just said, the Hurt Business was gaining so much steam. I mean, there were rap groups out there making songs about them. They were getting a lot of mainstream love because they were a powerful black stable in professional wrestling that has a history of not having them. The Nation of Domination was 30 years ago, buddy. You know what I mean? It's just, we've had 3 black WWE champions in the 50 plus years history of a WWE wrestling. And so, and Vince just has a history of this, man. He just takes these guys, Junkyard Dog, Papa Shango, making them make these weird African centric noises when the guy's from Mississippi. He just pigeonholes these guys into a gimmick that is overtly racist. And go ahead.
I'm sorry. I wanted to piggyback off of that because you're 100% right, by the way. I talk about this with my buddies all the time in terms of, like you said, maybe not a racist, but an elitist for sure. Mm-hmm. And if you look back think about Booker T when he came over from WCW and how he was treated, and how a lot of people thought, okay, he's going to win the main title at some point. And the best they gave him was the WCW title. And the way he was treated, if you remember, in that Triple H angle, and how, it was horrible. I don't know if you remember that.
I do remember. And was it WrestleMania, was it 19? One of them where he should have won the title then. But he was never going to win the title. I mean, Vince McMahon, openly, I remember Vince McMahon saying the N-word to John Cena on TV. Yeah. Like he thinks that stuff is funny. And I just grew up of a belief of just older white men of a certain age. I don't think they're doing it on purpose. They grew up in a time where that was okay. And that's just who they are. And this is just another example of that.
I'm sorry to cut you up, but the Peacock Network is now going back and editing inappropriate stuff. So apparently that's going to be one of many things erased from the history of WWE.
Yeah, but people who live through it are always going to remember it, always going to talk about it, and they should do that. And Batista primarily, but a lot of WWE talent spoke out, ex and current. Just people from the wrestling world spoke out about it. There's literally, I would love to know the reasoning. I would love to know why Vince McMahon and Vince McMahon alone just decided, because if anybody can give me a explanation that works, I am willing to hear it. Until then, I'm only going to call it for what it is. I just don't think Vince McMahon wanted Hurt Business to get even more popular because he knew that Drew McIntyre was going to beat Lashley. He was scared of the fallout from that, and he dismantled a powerful black group and something unique to WWE. What have people been clamoring for is something different. That's WWE's fault. Ever since John Cena, they don't have a legit star, like a legit draw. You understand? They don't have somebody who is the guy. And I don't know if Bobby Lashley's that, but the Hurt Business could have been that. The Hurt Business could have connected WWE to a broader, larger mainstream audience because they were different, they were fresh, and they were marketable. And he cut their legs out from underneath them. After building them up, man, they just got started. I just don't understand the logic behind that. But until then, I'm just going to have that opinion about it. It sucks for Shelton Benjamin and Cedric Alexander. They're going to be part of this Andre the Giant Battle Royal thing, which doesn't mean anything. But so let's kind of, before we move on to the Hall of Fame, let's kind of forecast the future of the Hurt business. MVP said that the Hurt business technically isn't over. I am holding out hope that maybe this is they'll Vince McMahon will change his mind and they'll come up with some weird, we acted like we're turning against you to get Drew McIntyre's guard down, but we're going to actually help Bobby win at WrestleMania. I don't know. That's my hope, but hopefully something will come along. But so let's assume that Drew wins the title. What's next for MVP and Bobby Lashley? We'll start with those two.
I don't know, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
I mean,
right, exactly.
But that's the thing. Vince is hot and cold with everybody. When you think about the guys in catering, you talk about Aleister Black and the push Paul Heyman was giving him, and then they vanish off TV. Then people have to convince him. I don't want to go on a tangent, but remember how long it took for people to convince Vince about Kofi Kingston and the fact that he didn't want to put the title on Kofi Kingston.
Hell no. And then he showed his appreciation of Kofi by having Brock Lesnar beat him in 3 seconds, which is
right. Oh my God, that was so bad.
It undermines obviously I get it. It's Brock Lesnar. He's the draw. You could have at least given Kofi a good match out of it and still make Brock look strong. You didn't have to just beat him down. And it doesn't go by me that was the night that SmackDown moved to Fox, and everybody knows the history between Fox News, and how they view and how they report on Black culture and Black lives. So that didn't slip past me either.
And don't forget Vince is a Trump guy too.
Yeah, Vince. I mean, think about it, and that was the other reason why I was kind of taken aback. Why people thought my take about how Vince views the Hurt business and breaking them up. Vince was on Donald Trump, president at the time, his board of trustees that were coming up with plans to reopen the country. Like, why the hell is Vince McMahon there? You know what I mean? Like, so Don't tell me that I'm out of my mind for thinking that Vince McMahon just doesn't want to have Black people at the top of his deal. When there's no other viable explanation to me. So now what about, I hate to even say it because I know Shelton Benjamin voiced his frustration on Twitter saying that it's frustrating time. It's a confusing time. I can't imagine how Cedric and Shelton feel, but do you think they'll stick around as a tag team? Do you think that's just it? They'll just go their separate ways? And I don't see Shelton being used for pretty much anything. Maybe Cedric has a chance to go down to NXT or, maybe.
Listen,
maybe do
I've been saying that forever. All those guys sitting in catering. Okay, let's look at it like this. Mm-hmm. If you're Triple H and you're running NXT, we know how many guys Vince calls up in a year. So Triple H should call Vince and say, well, if you're going to take some of my guys, why don't I take all your guys in catering and use them?
You know what? That would be the norm. I think Triple H is just scared of Vince. I think he's just trying to avoid that because it makes no sense why a guy like Andrade Almas and Asuka and Shinsuke Nakamura should be, and we'll talk about Asuka in a minute, but primarily like Aleister Black. I mean, not Aleister Black, but the non-English speaking ones, Andrade and Shinsuke. They were huge successes in NXT. I mean, they were getting the loudest pops. They were having the best matches. But Vince gets this thing in his head that he wants these people to talk because they can't be successful. That's not true because we've seen it be successful in NXT. Shinsuke is in NXT because he was successful being in the independent circuit. I get he was in New Japan, but he worked with non-English speaking wrestlers, and he's worked in that environment for years. So why can't these guys just be the same on Raw or SmackDown? Vince has this thing about him that you have to speak English, which speaks to, again, what I'm pointing to when it comes to the Hurt business. He has this weird idea of what success looks like. And you have these guys who are stars, absolute stars, down in NXT, which is supposed to be the developmental program. And NXT is successful, again, for the same reason I outlined AEW successful. It's drawing the actual wrestling fan. So if you're not going to appease the wrestling fan, then you should stop. You should either make NXT a true developmental brand and downgrade it and create another WWE show for those guys who shouldn't be developing but should want to actually wrestle. That's what I think.
I agree 100%. I don't know. I mean, I don't think Triple H is afraid of him, but I think it's from the standpoint of, okay, I know how much I can get away with saying to Vince versus now I don't want him to interfere with what I'm doing because I'm sure you know this. that Vince pretty much promised Triple H that he would be hands off of NXT.
Yeah, and everything I read says he is, but it goes to what you said. If he's just going to take the guys away from Triple H and not use them, why are you taking the guys? Like, you shouldn't be taking any of my guys unless you have a concrete plan for them. And if you don't, or if it doesn't work out, then send them back. You know, it doesn't change. It doesn't hurt anything. It helps. It actually helps your brand because, you know, then you have a situation like we talked about with Keith Lee where you're sending him down back to the Performance Center anyway. All right, well, if Keith Lee is not working out the way you thought he was going to work out, send his ass back down to NXT and let him work on it there. I think there should just be more of a collaboration. I think Vince can be hands off, but there could be more of a collaboration with transitioning guys to the main roster, because it's not like they just decide randomly who's going to the main roster. They know who they have their eye on. They know who's destined for the main roster. Rhea Ripley, there's no reason why you take her off NXT and then she's sitting there for 2 months waiting to debut on Raw. And then the only reason she's debuting on Raw is because you thought Charlotte Flair was pregnant, and so you just throw her into a match with Asuka. It just doesn't make sense. It's not. And again, I'm about to talk about this in a few when we talk about WrestleMania. But yeah, Vince, shame on you for breaking up the Hurt Business, man. Do the right thing. Fix that shit, because the culture needs it. So last night, well, I guess when people hear this, was it February 6th? Was the WWE Hall of Fame? We had a bunch of people inducted. NWO. Kane, Great Khali, Molly Holly, Eric Bischoff, Bella Twins. So we talked off air, and full disclosure, you said you did not get a chance to see it, but you knew who was inducted. How do you feel about the inductees?
Well, I mean, look, we talk about who deserves it, who doesn't deserve it. And one of the people that was part of the festivities, the Great Khali. Now, I know he did win a championship, but again, there's a lot of political stuff. We talk about the connection with India, and I'm sure you're familiar with the YouTube downloads. Mm-hmm. But is he a Hall of Famer at all?
No. And this is the political part of it. And he never spoke English well. He wasn't great. He wasn't a great wrestler. I get that his size kind of hampered him. He wasn't a great athlete. Yes, he was impressive in the ring. Yes, it was nice to see him in there, but he got such a high profile because they were building this bridge to India all those years ago, and it finally worked, finally paid off. And now he's over there, and he had a big part to do with NXT India. He's training wrestlers down there somehow. I don't know how he's training the wrestlers, but that's what he's doing down there or over there. And good for him, I guess. But this is a strictly political. Like, even if you just take away that, you look at his career. His career is not a Hall of Famer. I don't care if he's won a title. That don't mean nothing. You know what I mean? Right. You winning a title 1 or 2 times does not make you a Hall of Famer. That just makes you a champion, and that's okay to be a champion. And so Great Khali, shout out to him. I just don't think he deserves to be a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, so based on that, one day Jinder Mahal will be in the Hall of Fame.
Right, then yeah, that's the can of worms you open, right? All right, so Jinder Mahal, who had a year-long run, should absolutely be in the Hall of Fame then, right? Like, nobody's going to argue for Jinder Mahal. And I like Jinder Mahal. I think they just messed up his gimmick. They should have made him the Indian Triple H. They had a perfect opportunity to make him a sinister, but they made him a joke champion, and that hindered him because I don't think he was bad in the ring. I think he just wasn't the promo guy yet. I think he got thrown into the spotlight, and for what he was given, I think he did a good job, but they missed an opportunity with Jinder Mahal because they should have made him a serious, sinister character instead of a joke. Like, he seemed like a comedy act that was trying to be hard. You know what I mean? If that makes sense. Like, he should have been beating people bloody. He should have been giving sinister, short, answered promos, and they didn't do that with him, and it just didn't work. I like that he beat Randy Orton out of nowhere for that title. That could have been, again, that goes to the fact that he just refused to make these stars. They could have made a star out of him, and they fumbled the ball there.
Well, you just said it best. Jinder was hindered.
Jinder was hindered 100%. Molly Holly, I mean, I love her. She's great. She deserves to be. She was one of the very few women wrestlers that was like a real women's wrestler. She wasn't a diva, in an
Right,
era
right.
of
Well
divas.
said. Yeah.
And so I have no problem. She may not have the resume of like the Trish Stratus and the Litas, but she absolutely deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. I won't say nothing bad about Molly Holly. What do you think of RVD being in the WWE Hall of Fame?
Oh, listen, I'm a big RVD fan. I go back to the days of ECW. I used to go to the arena back in 99, 2000 before they closed down. I got to meet RVD. I actually had RVD on my college radio wrestling show back in 2000 at Kingsborough Community College in Brooklyn, New York. He called in. He had broken his leg at the time, and he was out of ECW for about 6 months. And he was home in California. He called. He did a 30-minute interview with us, and he was awesome. And then I got to meet him that weekend at CyberSlam, and what a great guy. And when you think about his career in WWE specifically, we won't talk about ECW, he got the short end of the stick also. He was so over when he got there, and he got the political game handed to him. There is no doubt that guy could have been a bigger draw and made more money for Vince than a lot of the people who ended up doing so.
I mean, remember One Night Stand back in 06, man. Like that place was, I mean, even when he was that champion, he was getting these loud pops. I mean, but that was strictly Vince just not wanting a guy not WWE created to be at the top. That's all that was. I mean, that was clear as day to me.
Yes and no. Some people say, and a lot of people talk about this, Triple H was playing the political game a lot back then, and RVD was not one of the guys he wanted there.
Oh, I believe it because Triple H knew RVD's power. I truly believe that. Triple H, and I mean, I make this joke all the time, but Shawn Michaels, you never hear a good story about Shawn Michaels from the 90s. They're all bad.
Right.
And it's because they play that political game. And Triple H, notorious for that, right? And I believe, again, maybe he knew in his heart that he has to take this guy out because he can't have this guy at the top of the card. So then they make him kind of like a joke. He's high all the time, team him up with Kane. He doesn't care about shit. And then, he just stays in the mid card, racked up a bunch of Intercontinental Championships. That's cool. The reason why I asked the question is because you look at his resume and he has a lot of tag team and Intercontinental Championships because that's just the nature. WWE doesn't really care. They throw a belt on a guy, but is his ECW independent circuit run more impressive than his WWE run? Because that's really the question I had. If you take just his WWE career, would you put him in the Hall of Fame? And I don't know if you just are so quick to say yes.
Right. When you look at the body of work, it's yes. And when you think about a star, he's a star. There's so many other people we talk about that are in that Hall of Fame that are definitely not stars. And that guy got over when his music hit, the pop was incredible. That's how you know you have a star.
Yeah. Yeah. Big time. Big time. The one thing I should have touched on this first. I mean, the lack of crowd. I mean, imagine a crowd there for RVD getting inducted. I know that's a big reason why Batista said, nah, I'm not getting inducted this year because I know he wants that crowd reaction. I don't know why he would want it. I think he would get booed now, but I think he set himself up for failure. But JBL, I know they piped in the crowd noise for a lot of these guys, but or for the show, it just doesn't feel the same. Missing the crowd. Kane deserved a crowd. Kane is so underrated, underappreciated historically. They did the right thing by making him. They made him the main event. Like he was the last inductee.
He was the last one. Okay.
And I'm very happy about that. He deserved that. But these guys just deserved a crowd more to me. And I was shocked. I really thought they were going to do NWO. This would be the second ring for all of these guys. All of these guys are already in the Hall of Fame. So maybe that had something to do with it. I'd be interested to see if they would have, if none of them were in, which I guess would be impossible, but to see if they would have headlined over Kane, but I don't think they would deserve to. But Kane is going to go down one of those guys. I made an argument. I think Kane is a top 10 character in wrestling history. I don't know if he's a top 10 wrestler, but I think he's a top 10 gimmick, top 10 character. I think he's in the top 20, 25 all time. To last that long and be that relevant for such a long period of time, you have to give him some credit.
Yeah, and when you think about how his gimmick started in terms of being Isaac Yankem pulling out
Yeah.
teeth.
He made a joke saying that was his mom's favorite gimmick, and I was like, well, I'm glad she must have been the only one because I hated it. But it's nice to see him get his just due, even though it wasn't without a crowd. The one thing I noticed about this, they had 2 Hall of Fame classes because obviously they had to cancel last year because that was when COVID just hit. I mean, this Hall of Fame induction was only about 3 hours. I mean, the year before, the one they had was about 6 hours, man. And they kept everybody's speeches short, and I'm sure that's because there was no crowd there. There really wasn't any dead time for them to let the crowd do their thing and react and things of that nature and distract them from their speech.
You know who changed the format of that, right? Who's responsible for the format change?
Who's that?
Mr. T, when he went on for an hour about his mama, remember?
Oh, that's right. Yeah. See, I mean, no, that's what they get for having these political guys inducted. Right. You never know; they're just gonna run along. And speaking of which, Ozzy Osbourne got inducted. He had a quick thing. I mean, I get Ozzy Osbourne. He was, and I get Mr. T too. They had an impact in WWE in history. Ozzy Osbourne has dedicated so many songs and music and things like that, and so much to wrestling. Eric Bischoff obviously deserves to go in. His contributions to wrestling, and I guess that's, at least he was GM of Raw, and he had a big impactful career. I think he could have been a Hall of Famer just with his WWE resume, but I guess WWE Hall of Fame is more of a wrestling Hall of Fame, obviously, with some of these inductions, as we talked about with Great Khali and RVD. Who am I missing? JBL. JBL went in. I love JBL. I loved his heel character. One of the great characters of his era. Do you have any fond memories of JBL?
Well, I was more of a fan of the APA back in the late 90s, early 2000s. Right. But when he went solo and did the whole rich guy gimmick and came out with the whole limousine and let's be fair, how he treated Orlando Jordan, if you remember those days, which we could talk about Vince being a racist.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of things there that I didn't care for. Right. And I considered a lot of those the dark days of WWE. And until like Eddie Guerrero got the title and Benoit, I really was not a fan of the whole JBL era, if you will.
Yeah. He that's what makes him a great heel, though. You have to have that stench of not likability. You know what I mean? Like I think there's a lot of great heels. There has to be a portion of that in you personally. I mean, he's probably one of the best heel promos in WWE history. I mean, I'm not surprised that he cut a heel promo during his Hall of Fame speech. I'm not surprised by any of that. But yeah, he helped with Edge carry an era post Prime Undertaker. He just stepped in from. And very few guys do that, break away from an iconic tag team and then have an iconic singles career. That doesn't happen often. So I will give him credit for doing that. British Bulldog went in. They had his son come in and accept the award on his behalf, which was nice. I think his son's going to find his way back into WWE pretty soon. He looked great. They also inducted Jushin Thunder Liger. I mean, everybody knows this guy's work. He's a classic. He's an icon in the wrestling business. He's trained so many and influenced so many current wrestlers and past wrestlers. So shout out to him. Our boy William Shatner getting the nod like that. If we're gonna put Drew Carey in. William Shatner deserves it. And then the Bella Twins. Hey, how do you feel about the Bella Twins getting in the WWE Hall of Fame?
Before I just talk about them, I just wanted to say that not growing up, as a kid, my favorite tag team of all time were the British Bulldogs. And I loved the fact that Davey Boy finally got in. Now Dynamite has to get in, but unfortunately, due to politics, he probably never will. But yeah, Davey Boy, I mean, when you if you ever go back and watch their matches, the timing of their matches, the athletic ability on top of the work rate. To me, they were right there in the argument as one of the greatest tag teams ever. And they get a lot of credit because, as you know, a lot of people have copied Dynamite Kid's work ability in terms of, there's numerous guys in the business who look up the Dynamite Kid's work rate. And Davey Boy was so good. Regarding the Bellas, I actually at some point started to watch that show, and then I realized, what am I doing watching this show? I had to stop watching it. But
it's funny. They're more interesting. They're more interesting on the show than they were wrestling. I'll tell you.
Right. When you look at their history of wrestling, I think over time they got better, because if you know the history, they were essentially found in like lingerie magazines back then. Right. So it took them a while to get the business, but I think before Nikki Bella retired, she was really getting good in the ring. Is that fair to say?
You know what? I was watching it and I was kind of doing some research and kind of looking at them. I'm like, oh my God. To me, they got more of they were holding down the women's division, or I would say they ushered in the Divas division because they weren't great wrestlers. However, their last single, like basically apart, right? Their singles runs, their last few years actually were pretty impressive. Brie got involved with Daniel Bryan. Nikki had her run as champion and obviously culminated with the engagement to John Cena. But like that whole time, their wrestling ability was nothing to sneeze at. And so I think part of it is political. I don't know where you would rank them in terms of women's wrestlers, though. I think that's my hang up with it. I think I still lean towards their induction as more of a political than a ability thing. Let's see. I'm trying to think. Titus O'Neil wins the Warrior Award. Part of me thought they were going to give it to Shad Gaspard simply because of his death. But right. I also have to check myself to not be that guy and to do that, because he wasn't a huge WWE presence. Crime Time was like a flash in the pan type thing. I don't think historically they're going to be remembered. Titus has done so much philanthropy and entertainment and a lot of behind the scenes work for WWE that I think it was correct for him to get this award. So I will shout out to him. He's a good guy. Anybody who knows anything about him, he's a great guy, and I think that he is a deserving person.
And in more recent time, though, he's going to be remembered for that run to the ring and going underneath the ring.
They should have had him run and fall at the thing, at the podium, and that would have been something to behold. So, it was a different kind of Hall of Fame. The short speeches were good. Each speech was about 5 minutes. Kane went a little long, but no crowd in the building really hurt. I think a lot of these guys like Kane, RVD, I think they all deserve to have people in the stands. I hope they get a chance. I guess they'll get their chance to get, because I guess there'll be a bunch of fans at WrestleMania, so they'll all come out. So hopefully the fans will show their appreciation. I did watch it while I was at work, and Kane, RVD, New World Order, I think they all had the best speeches. I don't think anybody stood out head and shoulders. I don't think there was like a iconic speech in there like there has been in the past couple years. But so shout out to the Hall of Fame people. So, all right, Chris, WrestleMania 37. Before we get to the actual card, how do you feel about the 2-night WrestleMania?
Well, I think the 2-night WrestleMania, I don't think it's Vince's idea. I actually believe that Triple H probably pitched it based off of the fact that he knows what's going on in the industry. And I know he and a lot of guys backstage are probably huge fans of New Japan Pro Wrestling. Mm-hmm. And their Wrestle Kingdom show, what used to be a 1-night event, last year started to be 2 nights and continued this year. And I think that was where he came up with the idea. And I guess Vince said, yeah, it makes sense, because their shows, if you noticed, and I talked about this on my podcast, they will be coming 5.5 hours. I remember WrestleMania 2 years ago, the main event with Roman Reigns was on at 12:30 Eastern Standard Time. It was outrageous.
I think we clocked it one time. It was like a 7.5 hour show, man. Like,
right.
And for me, I get that WrestleMania is supposed to be the biggest show, but for me, if you're going to be in sports entertainment, if you want to increase the product, WrestleMania, if you cap it at 4 or 5 hours, whatever, including the kickoff show. So you have that way you can do the stupid Andre the Giant Battle Royal or whatever you want to do and I get that, but if you want to make WrestleMania and you want to make WWE, we talked about their failing ratings. If you want to up the ante, hey, you have a year to prove you deserve to be on this card, because guess what? We're only having 10 matches, and that's it. And if you want to be part of those 10 matches, then you're going to bust your ass and you're going to work, and you have to put trust in your. Now, part of that is Vince and putting trust in the guys to do their own promos, come up with their ideas, pitch it, execute it. To me, it just would ante the game. And I get that they want those advertising dollars, because I think that's how we ended up with 2-night WrestleMania. I think that's how we ended up with 7-hour WrestleMania, just advertising dollars. So I guess money is the motivator here, but to me, if you want, I think this is a situation where less is more. You should have all your titles defended. You should have one of your big icon matches. I was actually a fan of the cinematic match with Undertaker. That's how you extend the careers of a Goldberg. I would love to have a Goldberg cinematic match where he's like the Terminator and he's facing somebody, where you can edit. You could take a day to shoot this match and make it look nice. The AJ Styles Undertaker match took 12 hours to film. You know what I mean? Like, and it was awesome. And they could have done that with Sting and Undertaker. They could have done that with Kane and Bray Wyatt. They could have done these things with a lot of these older guys who can't work a live match, but they can do these cinematic type matches like a movie. And, you know, we understand that these are characters, and I think people would love to see more of that. It doesn't have to be limited to supernatural characters. You can have some of these action guys do a badass cinematic type match, and they should really consider it. So I'm not going to waste time. I mean, looking at the Andre the Giant Battle Royal, we got Akira Tozawa, Angel Garza, Cedric Alexander, Drew Gulak, Elias, Eric. I don't even know who Eric is. Grand Metalik, Humberto Carrillo, Jason Riker, Jey Uso, Kalisto, Baron Corbin, Dorado, Mace from Retribution, which I guess they're still Retribution even though they kicked out Mustafa Ali. Buddy Murphy, Mustafa Ali, Ricochet, Shelton Benjamin, Shinsuke, Slapjack T-Bar, and Tucker. So Shinsuke is absolutely going to win this thing, right?
Yeah, I really don't know their plans with anything these days. So
I mean, I'm looking at these guys. I don't even know who half of them are. I forgot half of them were in WWE. I mean, Shinsuke is obviously the biggest name in there. The only other person I can see winning this thing is either Baron Corbin or Mustafa Ali, maybe? I don't know.
To this day, I'll never understand Vince McMahon's love for Baron Corbin, because if you think back to his time in NXT, he initially started out doing squash matches where he's beating everybody in 30 seconds, where the NXT they would actually count the amount of time it took for him to beat an opponent. But then over time, Triple H started putting him in bigger matches, and he would lose every bigger match. Yeah. Then he gets to WWE main roster, and all of a sudden, he's a guy. I'm like, I don't care about Baron Corbin.
You know what's funny about Baron Corbin? And I had a conversation with my buddy about him. Everything about Baron Corbin is great. His gimmick is great. His moveset is great. His character is great. The problem is Baron Corbin. It's him. He's not a likable guy. If anybody else could pull off that gimmick, they should just erase. They should just like they did with Chris Benoit, just erase the face of Baron Corbin and give the name and everything about him to somebody else who's more charismatic, who's not as douchey looking in the face. Yeah, you know, I love the End of Days finisher. I love the theme music. I love the lone wolf gimmick. I love all of that. It's just the man that's doing it is unbearable, bro. And I don't know what they do with him. It's such a wasted character. It sucks that it ended up that way for him. And now he's like still for some reason King Corbin, even though nobody cares about King of the Ring. It's really garnered. They need to stop doing that. Stop making people legit kings when they win King of the Ring. It never made any sense to me. King Booker's the only one that pulled it off. Exactly.
And there's a difference between having good heel heat and then having go home heat. I think he has the latter.
100%. He has X-Pac, we hate you heat. You're not a good heel. We don't like you. And there's a huge difference in that. So what is your prediction for Bianca Belair and Sasha Banks? Do you like this feud? Do you like how they booked this thing?
First of all, I love Bianca Belair in general because, of course, I've been following her since NXT, and her story is phenomenal. I love the way she won the Royal Rumble. Everything was perfect about that moment. Her post-match speech, the crying, everything. And just, I'm not going to lie to you and say I know the ins and outs of this feud, but I love the match and how it's put together. And ultimately, I believe it will be a disservice if she doesn't win.
She absolutely has to win. However, I think they went about it wrong. I get that they're making her the face because they want fans to get behind her. But to me, you're going to sell her short. She is a natural heel. Her character is a heel character. And she has built herself up to this prominence being a heel. That's how she got here. She gets the main roster. Now she's buddy-buddy with Sasha Banks. And this is going to be a theme for my WrestleMania. I just don't like this match should be so much bigger than it is. She should definitely have been the heel beating Sasha Banks to put her on the map. Heels get over, not faces. Faces get the feel-good moment, and then it's over. And then they want to see what you do next. And the heels are the ones that get over. Think about every great character in WWE. They got over being a heel. The only exception, right, is Stone Cold. And he wasn't really a face. He was beating people up. He just decided to beat up bad guys. And then all of a sudden he beat up good guys sometimes. And he just beat up whoever. It just took a life of its own. Hogan's another one. But John Cena got over as a heel. Roman Reigns, they hated him as a face. Basically what they're doing with Bianca Belair is what they did with Roman Reigns. That's my fear for her. They're going to shove her face character down our throats, and it's going to turn people against her. You know, he didn't really get over until he finally turned heel, and now he's probably the best thing in WWE. Daniel Bryan got over. Yes Movement started because he was a heel. He was a great heel. Edge, great heel. And all these great guys turned. It just doesn't. It rarely works the other way around. So I'm terrified for her.
Well, I agree with you within. I don't know. The thing is, Sasha is a better heel too. So unless you're going to do the heel versus heel, I don't know if you can sell Sasha as a face right now.
Well, okay, but if we're both in agreement that Sasha is destined to lose, then it doesn't hurt nothing. Especially when we've seen her already do both. It doesn't hurt her to be the face for a little bit and then move back to Raw and she can be a heel again. You know what I mean? Or she can go be a heel being mad that she lost the title, but go be a heel, and feud with Bayley, for some reason is not on this card after carrying SmackDown's women division for a better part of a year.
That's incredible when you think about it. Right.
Wow. It's unbelievable that she's not, if she's not there. So, Bobby Lashley, Drew McIntyre. Let's get that one out of the way. I mean, we've kind of already talked about it.
Yeah.
I think we're in agreement that we both think Bobby Lashley deserves to win, but we fully expect Drew McIntyre to win.
Right. I mean, it's just I hate to say it, but Lashley ended up being a transitional champion, which is unfair to his career and everything he stood for. He should have been able to hold it for at least a few more months.
I would have loved for him to hold it until SummerSlam. Let Drew win it at SummerSlam, but they want Drew to win it. For some reason, he has to win it at WrestleMania so bad in front of people. I think Bobby outperformed his transition tag. I personally think his work has never been better, and I think he deserves to have a longer run. And to me, it would actually, and I wouldn't even mind if Drew faced him at SummerSlam, because if it would enhance that match, it would enhance that story. You're building another legit star. It would enhance it if Bobby beats him at Mania and then they kind of go apart for a while, and then Drew comes back for revenge heading into SummerSlam season. I think that's the way you go with it.
Well, not only that, but in terms of the crowd, now we know there's only going to be a percentage, right, at WrestleMania. It's not going to be capacity. Whereas at SummerSlam, whatever venue they choose, we're going to likely have more fans depending on what happens with COVID going forward. But I imagine there'll be a higher capacity for summer versus this weekend.
For WrestleMania, especially. I mean, and even if everything stays the same, you can move SummerSlam to Texas, where we've seen the Texas Rangers. Texas is fully open. That Texas Rangers game every seat was sold out. So you have time to move everything you need to move to Texas and have, and I'm sure Jerry Jones is good friends with Vince McMahon. Hey, we're trying to have WrestleMania there. What's up? And he might do it. And so that'll be interesting. Like I said, I'm holding on a little shrivel of hope that's what we get. Cesaro and Seth Rollins. I hate Seth Rollins, man. I don't know about you. I think he's the most boring He's one of those guys that we talked about earlier, has all the ability in the world, but he just is not interesting to me. He's boring on the microphone. He's not good on the microphone. He's not interesting as a character. I don't know what he's doing right now, except wearing bad suits on Raw every week. What is your take on Cesaro and Seth Rollins?
Seth Rollins, they killed Seth Rollins. Let's be fair. When he was
100%.
hot and he was the champ and everything was going well, and then they killed him. Well, I forget, who did he lose to that kill? Was it Brock Lesnar? Somebody, I forget the exact scenario, but something happened in his. Oh, the Fiend, right?
Yes,
They buried him against the Fiend.
Yep.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, he was. I think he was. Besides Kane, I think he was like the first real victim of the Fiend. Was
Right,
Seth
right.
Rollins. So I
And-
think
all right.
Fiend showed up to beat Kane, so they could get over the fact that the Fiend is the new masked, like supernatural guy, and
Yeah.
then Kane can go be Glenn Jacobs and go be the mayor of Knoxville, Tennessee, or wherever he's doing. And Seth Rollins was like the first real feud for the Fiend. So this should be a fantastic match, considering
Right.
the two people that are involved. But again, just like we've explained with Bobby and Drew and Bianca and Sasha, the story isn't there for me, man. It's just it's like a theme of the night. Like, why are these matches that should probably be good in the ring not interesting to me? Cesaro has zero shot at winning this match. Why would you not tell a story that makes me think that he can win this match? And they just refuse to do it.
Right. This is going to be a bathroom break for some people, because a lot of, especially the casual fan who doesn't care about the in-ring work that both guys can put on, because both guys in the ring are as good as it gets. Let's be fair.
Cesaro might be the best wrestler in WWE.
Yeah,
in terms of
right
in-the-ring ability.
right there with Daniel Bryan, that's for certain.
100%. Yep.
And when you think about the story, the casual fan, remember, a lot more casual fans order WrestleMania. They're not going to care about this match.
Yeah. Again, yes. Thank you for saying that, because we're going to get to Asuka in a little bit here. Casual fans know Cesaro has been losing for a better part of 2 years now. And when they see this match with Seth Rollins, who they know is a main guy, they're not going to care, because they're automatically going to say, oh, this other guy has zero shot. And I just don't know what they're doing with some of these guys. It's crazy that this is Cesaro's first singles match at WrestleMania. That blew me away when I read that statistic.
Right.
I mean, and so you're talking about a guy who has zero singles matches at Mania versus a guy who has WrestleMania wins over Brock Lesnar and Triple H. Like, it's just tell a believable story. Give me something. And it should be more interesting than it is. That's the theme of WrestleMania 37. It's just an incomplete show to me. And then you have matches like this that are coming up that are just thrown together. Shane McMahon versus Braun Strowman. Can you believe they're adding train sounds to Braun Strowman's moveset now? Is that not the most ridiculous thing?
But it's WWE. It's a circus. Let's be fair. I mean, we know what they're capable of. We've seen probably worse things. Think about the whole Fiend thing, watching his matches with that whole horrible color scheme. I mean, it's just, look, this match, for me anyway, is an embarrassment from the standpoint of thinking that a 53-year-old, I think he's that old, Shane McMahon, can actually last more than 2 minutes with Braun Strowman in a cage. This is a cage. He should be destroyed instantly.
Yes. Yeah. It's weird. It's just weird. Like, look at this. Look at Braun Strowman, who looks impressive. I will give him credit for improving his body and his look and changing a little bit, but they're not doing him any service by giving him, like, beating Shane McMahon in a cage match is going to do what for you exactly? Like, this better be one of those like 2-second matches where somehow Shane just gets slammed in through the ring from the top of the cage. That's the only way I'll accept this match. But I think Shane's gonna fucking win this match. I really do.
Oh God, I hope not.
I don't, for some reason, man. And it is odd. Shane McMahon. Shane McMahon has a Hall of Fame wrestling career. He has some classic matches, man. So I should expect more, but for some reason I don't. But I like Shane McMahon. He's, like I said, he's put on some classic wrestling matches. He's not a gimmick. He has done well for himself. But this, I just can't get it. Like, oh, 2 + 2 is 5, and you're stupid. That's the crux of this feud, and it's not interesting. I just don't see the appeal in it. It's probably going to be one of the worst matches on the card, but hopefully Shane can and Braun can prove me wrong on that. Actually, I lied. I lied. The worst match on this card, Chris. Bad Bunny versus The Miz. What the hell?
Oh man, yeah. I call him Bugs Bunny, by the way.
Yeah. I'm surprised they haven't done that on TV yet. Called him Bugs Bunny. It's.
Did you hear? By the way, did you hear his promo on the Go Home Show or Raw? I felt bad listening to it. Like they should never give him a mic again. It was so bad.
But you know what, man? It sucks because here's the politics creeping into our product again. You know, he's the number one pop star in the world. You know, he sells a cajillion records and everybody knows him. And people who don't watch wrestling are looking at his Instagram and his Twitter and they're watching, they're intaking WWE product for the first time. And that's literally all he's there for. And The Miz is probably the only person that he could work with to get that over. Because The Miz, another future Hall of Famer, just knows how to get people over. And he knows how to work with literally scraps. The Miz gets little credit historically for making nothing out of something. I mean, what's the phrase he makes? Chicken scratch from chicken shit or whatever. Chicken salad from chicken shit. Like, it's he is the master at that. He does the best with whatever he's given. So I'm not expecting a lot from this match, but Bad Bunny's going to win the match.
Though. We're forgetting one important part about the match. I remember on Raw, they decided to make it a tag match. So now Damian Priest is involved with Morrison.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I missed some of Raw because I was working at the firehouse and I had a call, so I might have missed that part. I remember when they were first out there and I saw their faces on the TV, but then we had to go. But anyway, yeah, Damian Priest, I like him. It's sad that he's being Bad Bunny's like basically bodyguard. You know, that's interesting. I would love Damian Priest after all this time to just turn heel and beat up Bad Bunny, let Miz get the victory, and then Damian Priest just beat up The Miz and John Morrison. That would be fantastic. Damian Priest seems like a heel to me. Everything about him seems like he just has the face of a heel. His character seems like a heel character, but they turned him in, I guess, to a rock star. So, who knows? But
well, he can be a heel, but he could also be what they call a tweener. I think he could be a little bit of both, kind of like that guy that beats everybody's ass. The reason, from what I understand, why this match has been turned into a tag team match is because reportedly Bad Bunny has been at the PC training and they do not trust him to work a match alone. So they want to cover him and make him look as good as possible in limited time.
See, you know what's funny? Why would you expect him to look good in the ring? Right. You know what I mean? Like it's over for him after this. I get that he's a WWE fan, but why would you expect him to to be a wrestler? He's going back to make his music after this. Let it be what it is. It's Bad Bunny versus The Miz. So, I mean, I guess they want to put a wrestling match on. Great. That doesn't change the fact that Bad Bunny's not going to do very much, and he could have done that in a singles match. But hey, it gets Damian Priest some exposure. That actually further concretes the fact that Bad Bunny was going to win, and he's going to win anyway. So I guess it doesn't really matter. New Day versus, I don't even know if we want to keep calling them that. I can't believe they broke up the New Day for them to absolutely do nothing since it's happened. But Kingston and Woods are going against AJ Styles and Omos. What do you feel? How do you feel about Omos?
Well, I mean, this is going to be his in-ring debut, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, I don't know much about him. I mean, I remember him being at NXT a couple times, but never getting in the ring there. So we don't know what this guy is. So therefore, I'm inclined to believe they're going to hide him also. We're not going to see him do very much. And in terms of this match, I mean, look how AJ has been booked to look lately. AJ lost again on Raw. The guy's lost, I think, 3 consecutive matches.
Yeah. There was a report that AJ wanted to face Triple H this year. And
yes,
Triple H wanted to do it, but he just said, man, I look like shit. And I'm not in Mania shape. Like, I would love to do it. He didn't take it off the table, so maybe we'll get it next year. But AJ Styles did the same. Like, that's how that cinematic match came about. They weren't really doing much with AJ, and he said, hey, he literally went around everybody, went straight to the Undertaker, and said, hey, let's do this. Let's figure out a way to make this work. And that's how the cinematic match was involved. But AJ Styles, I mean, he's an icon in wrestling, and I think he wants to before he goes out, he wants and some of these guys go out, he wants to face these guys, and I think it would have been a fantastic match if they could have pulled it off. But hopefully they get a chance to do it next year, maybe SummerSlam. You know, maybe he can do it at SummerSlam. And
by the way, when Triple H says he's not in Mania shape, that means he's not on the gas.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. You see these guys, man. Goldberg's wearing. Everybody's doing the Brock Lesnar, chicken leg shorts combo now. We saw Gold. You know, that's how you know you got to stop wrestling. Like, Goldberg came out and did those shorts. I was like, it's over for him. Never come back. Triple H might be the same way, wearing those shorts and not wanting didn't Triple H wear those shorts? Who did he wear those shorts against? Wasn't he involved in a tag match and he wore those shorts? Am I making that up? I could have swore I thought I saw him in those weird MMA shorts.
It's sad when you see a lot of these guys age. Like, have you seen recently Stone Cold Steve Austin on one of his shows now with his shirt off and how old he looks? Oh my God, it's sad.
Oh yeah. I mean, but at least Stone Cold looks decent. For his age. Like Triple H, I can imagine with all the office work and all how busy he is running things, that he can't be in good shape in terms of his training. And I don't know how much wrestling. Obviously, I don't know how much wrestling he's doing. A lot of these guys like to wrestle in their free time. Maybe I don't think he's doing much of that. But
no.
And then so damn, that was only night one. I'm trying to run through these matches. We don't care about Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens. It's ridiculous.
I can't believe that's still going on. Think about that. If you didn't watch Raw or SmackDown for the last 18 months and you turned it back on, that you're like, wait, this is still happening?
Yes, it's so random. It's such a random. It's like literally, hey, we have nothing for you. Hey, you guys know each other. Go put on a match. And they were like, okay. And then so here we are. Owens is going to win that match. So then you have Big E Intercontinental Championship against Apollo Crews, apparently straight out of Wakanda. And
what is that? Nowhere. I heard about this because I have yet to hear the accent. And then people.
It's good. It's good. Yeah. It's funny, man. When he came to WWE, we all wanted Uha Nation. That's what we know him for, and they gave us Apollo Crews. He should have been this. I don't know about the accent, but he should have been on this like warlord stuff from the beginning. Big E's gonna win because he needs a signature WrestleMania championship title win.
Right.
But I'm not really. It's supposed to be a Nigerian drum fight. I hate when they do shit like this.
Oh my God.
Punjabi prison match. They don't even say what a Nigerian drum fight is. So the feud has been awful.
The only thing that doesn't work for me with the character is that all of a sudden now he has an accent. It just doesn't make any sense.
Hey, Vince being Vince, man. Hey, go out there and do an African accent just cause. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like he could have Nigerian pride and do all that stuff and rock the spear and do all that stuff and not have the Nigerian accent, bro.
Right.
It doesn't make any sense for him to do.
It was like Kofi with the Jamaican accent or Booker T with the King Booker.
Yeah. See, Booker can do that. That's funny because it's like you're a king, so you're talking like how a king would talk. It's funny. You know what I mean? But Kofi Kingston being Ghanan, and then they say, hey, you're going to be Jamaican now, so do a Jamaican accent. Yeah. It's like, bro, he has Ghana tattoos all over him. Like he's all of a sudden he's Jamaican now. It's weird. It's just a weird. Again, Vince just pigeonholing people without understanding what's going on. We have Bray Wyatt versus Randy Orton, round 624.
You can't pay me to watch this match. I said I may just go to the bathroom and find a way to do something else.
Randy Orton is a GOAT. I'm going to get that out of the way. He's one of the greatest of all time. He's top 10 of all time. There's not many people that have his resume that can work the ring like he can cut a promo like he can. But this is not it for him. My interest is low because they've done so much together, and this is pre-Fiend. It's just not. I don't know what you do. I guess it's one of those things where they don't have anything for Orton to do right now. So
this is beyond being a company guy. Like if you're Randy Orton and you have the legacy and career and resume, wouldn't you say no to this? Like, why did he say yes to this?
Because him and Bray are friends. I don't know. And it's something for him to do. He doesn't want to sit at home. He wants to be on Mania. But hopefully they do something better. I hope it's not another cinematic match, and I hope they don't. I know that they're going to add some. But there's people, so they're not going to add some of these elements where he's like vomiting black blood and fireballs and things like that. It'll be interesting to see what they do. You know,
Hey,
maybe
can you
they
answer
should've-
one question for me? I have one question for you.
What's that?
For years, we heard about Sister Abigail. Can you please tell me why Alexa Bliss didn't become Sister Abigail?
Right. Let her be possessed by the spirit of Sister Abigail. Like they, they're missing. Bray Wyatt is one of the great missed opportunities. I mean, from the Manson theme, the Wyatt family, just everything about Bray Wyatt is just his whole gimmick should just be missed opportunity.
They ruined it completely 10 times over.
Every time they ruined it, and they already ruined the Fiend. This is stupid. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm not interested in this match. Asuka and Rhea Ripley. Again, this match should be bigger than it is, but the problem is they've booked, even though she's been champion all year, they've booked Asuka like shit mostly since she's been on the main roster. Well, and now you have her. She was supposed to face Charlotte, and then now you just throw Rhea Ripley out there, and there's no story. That's the problem. There's no story here, and Rhea's probably going to win, even though I don't think she deserves it. And Asuka deserves a WrestleMania win here. She deserves a dominant one. This is how you restart Asuka's career. Rhea Ripley can recover from a loss at Mania, but just knowing how WWE is, Rhea's probably going to win.
Well, I'll say this. I hate the way Asuka is treated, and we talk about racism. Why is she out there doing the ridiculous dance, doing the stupid with the whole, I mean, everything about it. You think about how she was booked in NXT versus the main roster, it's an embarrassment, albeit she's champion. And conversely, Rhea Ripley, who was supposed to be a monster towards the end of her NXT run, she was doing a lot of, she lost clean to Io Shirai. She put over Raquel Gonzalez. And so when she shows up on the main roster, and I talked about this, think about the difference in the ratings. NXT has about 600,000. Raw has 1.7 million. So there's over 1 million people who don't know who Rhea Ripley is. Right. She comes out of nowhere, gets this title shot. Who is she? And yeah, like you said, she has to win or she's killed right away with the casual fan.
And then but if Asuka doesn't win, it's like, all right, you know what I mean? It's such a and with Asuka, even in NXT, she did a little bit of like that was the appeal. She would come out and do her dance with the mask on, but then she turned into a killer. And that they missed that from here. Like she's all jokey and happy with people, and like and that's my problem with Vince. Like, why does she have to speak English? No, let her come out and be an unassuming wrestler with a cool ass, jacket and mask, and then as soon as that bell rings, let her just kick people's ass. Like that's how she got over. That's why people know her. She's done that all her career, even in the independent scene. And I don't know what you do, because I think true fans know Rhea Ripley can be a star, but as you just said, and you hit it 100% on the head, nobody knows who she is. She just got thrown in there. And WrestleMania is supposed to be a culmination of these feuds, these stories. There is little to zero story in any of these matches, and that's why I think this WrestleMania is going to be one of the worst. And of course, the main event for that is the Daniel Bryan, Edge, and Roman Reigns. And you want to talk about waste. They wasted Edge here. They wasted Edge ever since his return, and it started last year with him with WrestleMania and Cove being canceled. He had a really good match with Randy Orton, and that one, but
the greatest match ever.
Yeah, that's what they billed it as. I mean, but it was awesome. I don't know about ever, but it was awesome. It was one of the best matches, maybe the best match at that WrestleMania.
The 36. Match that was edited about 400 times.
hey, but you know what? That's cool. If you're gonna have the opportunity to edit these matches and do these things, you do it that way and do it there. So before we analyze this match, who do you think is gonna win?
Well, when I heard that Daniel Bryan was put into the match, I cringed because I consider it, I hope this doesn't happen, but it's considered lazy booking when you do a three-way just to have one of the guys beat the guy. In other words, I think Daniel Bryan is only in this match to be the guy to lose.
100%. He is here to take the pin. I hate that. He is absolutely here to take the pin. There's no way ifs, ands, and buts. So how do you feel about Roman Reigns' character? He's going to win this match, but so let's get away from that. But how do you feel about his character overall? Since he's turned heel, how would you rate his character?
Well, is it fair to say Paul Heyman has helped so much with the character, and maybe without Heyman, we wouldn't care about him as much?
Thank you. 100%. Let me tell the people out there listening about Roman Reigns. He is not top 10 in the WWE in the ring. He is not top 10 in WWE on the microphone. He is not even a top 10 interesting character in WWE. So what is it about him? It's Paul Heyman. Transformed everything about Roman Reigns. That speaks to what we talked about at the very beginning of the show. You don't have to be the best at anything. I just gave it to you. Roman Reigns ain't the top 10 in anything in WWE. But now he's interesting because he has Paul Heyman. On his own, he's nobody. And it was proven to us his entire run, post-Shield split, where people were legitimately walking out of his matches, his main event matches.
Okay.
So don't tell me Roman Reigns is great, because give me another main eventer where people were actively leaving his matches. He's the only one. So thank God. He should be giving Paul Heyman a portion of his salary, because thankfully now Roman Reigns is finally interesting. It'll get really interesting when Jimmy Uso is back from injury and they can build this Samoan SWAT team stable that they're going to have and incorporate more because Jey Uso has also been doing the best work of his career thanks to Roman Reigns, which is thanks really to Paul Heyman. And I'm sure he's coaching them up behind the scenes. It'll be really interesting. And that's exactly why I think Roman Reigns is destined to win this, because I think Jimmy might even get involved, because Jey may be banned from ringside. I might see a situation where Jey is banned. I know it's no DQ, but Adam Pearce might do some hey, Jey, you're banned from ringside. Hey, Jimmy, that he didn't say Jimmy. Now Jimmy's back. And then Jimmy and Jey can go get these tag titles, and the head of the table and Roman Reigns and the, what do they call themselves? The Bloodline. The Bloodline is going to be what the Hurt Business should have been, a dominant stable with all the championships on their respective brand.
So does this mean if Daniel Bryan does take the loss, we're not going to see Roman versus Edge at all at any point in singles like at SummerSlam? So
for me, the best story would be Edge winning this title this weekend, and having Reigns fight him all the way out until SummerSlam and winning it at SummerSlam. That would be the best, and it would complete the comeback story for Edge, and I actually wouldn't mind a short turnaround and make Edge a transitional champion. But I think you're spot on. I think Daniel Bryan was literally only added simply to take the pin, which I think would be awful. Daniel Bryan winning would give him another WrestleMania moment. I don't know if he needs it, but at WrestleMania 30, you remember he won that match with Triple H and I believe Batista, right?
Yes.
And became WWE champion. I don't know how Daniel Bryan continues to find his way into these matches, but he does. But and it could work the other way. Edge could beat Daniel. Yeah, you're right. So maybe Roman Reigns isn't destined to win, but Daniel Bryan is actually destined to lose. I truly believe that. So
I just had another thought while you were saying all that. Mm-hmm. We talk about Roman Reigns and how he was forced down our throat as a face, and now he's turned into this heel that people now somewhat respect. The casual fan isn't on him as much,
right?
And I should say the diehard, the casual fan doesn't care. But my question is, if you're Vince, is there a thought in your head of eventually trying to turn him back to be a face, or do you just ride this out?
Roman Reigns will absolutely be a face again.
However, when the reaction happens, right?
And that's going to be the interesting thing. What reaction is Roman Reigns going to get? Daniel Bryan is going to get cheered. Edge is going to get cheered massively. But people who were booing Roman Reigns as a face will probably cheer him as a heel, which probably lends, like, he should be winning in a truly heel fashion. Like, he should be winning, like, he should be disgusting when he beats up Daniel Bryan and Edge. people want Edge to win this match, so Roman Reigns beating Edge makes sense. But then that also doesn't make sense for Daniel Bryan to be in this match at all, if that's going to be the case. Because if you want Roman Reigns to get over maximum heel, you have him beat Edge by himself. Because everybody wants that comeback story. Everybody's behind Edge. But then they inexplicably turned Edge heel. So now what do? You have one baby face in Daniel Bryan against two heels, Edge now, and Roman Reigns. So it's going to be interesting. It'll be interesting to see how they do it there. I just think, like, again, the story was rushed. They threw Daniel Bryan in there, then they inexplicably turned Edge heel. It just all that to Roman Reigns to win. To me, it just doesn't. It's just sloppy and it's lazy, and it signals to me that they don't have a true plan.
I gotta be honest with you, and I don't mind admitting this because, like I said, I don't really watch SmackDown. I had no idea they turned Edge heel. That makes no sense. It's so poorly done.
They had him just beat up, like he went chair shots and beat up Daniel Bryan, and he also did it to Roman Reigns, but his mannerisms absolutely went back to crazy Edge. And
that's so stupid.
It is. It's weird, but I think he's still going to get cheered wildly because he was always cheered as a heel, especially in his before he was forced to retire. So, but I think people want that comeback story for Edge, and I think he'll get cheered either way. And I think people still truly hate Roman Reigns. I don't care what he does, but I do think eventually he'll be a face. Now, what they should do, if you want to keep the momentum going, he should absolutely not be the face he was before. He should absolutely be the face, just like with Austin. Not change anything about yourself, except you just change who you're fighting, right? Be who you are, just do it towards heels now. And that's what Austin did. Austin didn't care who you were. He was going to beat your ass and drink beer, and he didn't care if you were a face or heel, and he got cheered either way. Roman Reigns should be just as nasty, just as brooding, do it against Baron Corbin. You know what I mean? Do it against Seth Rollins. Do it against whoever the other heels that they have. Randy Orton. Do it against these guys, and then we'll see where we're at with that.
Yeah, so, I hate to make this joke, but if you think back to when Roman Reigns had to take the leave of absence, I think people cheered leukemia more than Roman Reigns.
Yeah, I mean, and listen, I have a deeper, darker, him. It's funny how he had leukemia, but then all of a sudden he's out in Hawaii filming fast movies with The Rock. I mean, Jesus. Comes back in 3 months. I mean, whatever. That's odd. But that we'll save that for another show because people were down my throat on that one. But hey, Chris, man, we went at it for about an hour and a half. Do you have any final thoughts on anything? Anything you want to bring up that we didn't talk about?
Not right now, no. But
that's cool. I enjoyed. Time flew, man. I didn't think we were going to go this long, so I appreciate you for joining me. Again, this is Christopher Morton, host of the Morton's Law Podcast. Check him out wherever you get your podcasts. Check him out on YouTube. Follow him on Twitter and YouTube. And Chris, thank you for joining me. I can't wait to do your podcast, and hopefully I will have you back. Not hopefully, I will have you back.
Smark
well after WrestleMania. And thank you for joining me.
Sounds good. Thanks again, man. Take care.
You too.